Finally,
Okay.
Stefan.
All right. So first of all, I am an immigrant also. I came here after high school in Hong Kong, and then started in Caltech. And in fact, some of my classmates in Caltech are here, and very happy to see them. I started my career actually in the magnetic area. So Chris Bayard was here, and I actually worked on his project when I was at Caltech. And through that, I went to Yale University for my graduate degree in the area of magnetic also, in a good friend of my professor, Chuck Wills at that time. But then somewhere along the line, I get moved into the tunneling area. So for my thesis, I actually did a tunneling memory. It's much thinner, about 30 angstrom at that time. I have to build all my equipment to build the outside and all that. So those are days that you get your hand dirty, you build your equipment, you do your plumbing and all that at the lab at Yale. So after my degree at Yale, I was given an offer at Bell by I think it's Dion who gave me the offer. But anyway, but also by IBM. And so I decided that those days, IBM is the place to be. Bell Lab is fading. So I joined IBM, and I spent my time there studying dielectric property, damaging the oxide with hot electron, radiation, what changed, what happened to it. And so that led me to, and at that time my group was actually paid for by DARPA. And so we have complete freedom to pursue what we're going to do. And so along, in the early '82, I was invited to give a paper in San Jose on the dielectric properties of silicon dioxide. And I think it's that time that all the people who have left Intel. All the people work on E Square, and so my hiring manager, his name is Wing Dam, I'm sure some of you know that, is sort of trying to rebuild his group. So he saw what I was doing, and so he called me up and asked me to come up for an interview. And one story is, when I came up for an interview, I also interviewed Eddie. So he found out that I'm coming out, so he piggybacked on that and just get me in and talk to me, and he did give me an offer. No. He thought that I was too academic, which is correct at that time. I was just doing research, but when I was leaving, he did give me his words of wisdom. He said, "Stefan, the world is changing in front of you. So you either can go back to your ivory tower at Yorktown, which was an ivory tower literally, or to come and join us." So I decided to join. Intel gave me an offer. So I joined Intel in
It's my mic that did it, sorry.
June of '82. Coming into it, I'm a pure academic, as Ali suggested, and I really, I have never done make any memory chip, make any real product. So I literally spent the first year or so sort of learning about how things are made and what are the key important. At that time, there was a very important program inside Intel called Advanced C-Square. The key member of that team, someone that you may know, is Bossy Tan, which joined Eddie later in the WSI. And so they have this secret program, which is supposed to have this new E-Square technology that's going to change everything. And they are kind enough to let me in because I'm an outsider. And in the meantime, I also help out on the E-Square. I work on the 2016, started 2064, 2004, which is a Normoto RAM, which is a floating gate with the E-Square backup, Astro folded E-Square backup. So in that year, I learned a lot about technology, manufacturing, and the physics, and all the cell physics. And in about middle of '83, there was a very key experiment that was being done by the advanced E-squared group. And what they find out is even though the device works in a large area device, on a 100 micron large area device, when you scale down to 1 micron device, it doesn't work. So there was a real scramble. The whole company said that, that's our E-squared future, what's going to happen to it? And so I was, at that time, after 1 year, I sort of learned all about all that goes on, the physics and all that. And so the idea of the E-Talks actually came up from there. Basically, there are two problems. By the way, another sidebar, I was told I was hired to find out how to scale E-squared from Flotalk. Flotalk has 2 cells, 1 select transistor and 1 large memory transistor. It's very difficult to scale. And I was told that one reason that Intel continued to spend a lot of money at that time is because Eddie told Gordon that you have to find some sort of electrically erasable EEPROM. And so my hiring at Intel actually also tied to Eddie, so he has to do all that. Anyway, so my idea at that time is very simple. Everybody's trying to find ways to program, but the EEPROM actually has a program, selective programming also. Once you have, you don't have to all this fancy. One of the reasons why you need 2 transistors in Flotalks is because you need one to select the programming. But EEPROM already have the programming mechanism. It will be programmed, and the whole trick is how to erase it. And then I just, in fact, the first my disclosure, the first device that I drew up was to have a EEPROM programming, but I have a separate erase area. But then, I showed to my boss at that time, Wayne said, but Motorola has this cell that has no separate area. They use a whole tunnel area as for erase. I said, but that device leak a lot and all that. So he said, why don't you think of a way of solving that problem? So basically, the solution at that time is, first of all, we do not erase it to high voltage. Secondly, we added a phosphorus implant on the source side to improve the junction breakdown voltage. So by putting these two together, the programming takes up to some high level, and the erase, as opposed to E-square, we do not need to erase to the negative level. All we're trying to do is erase it to the neutral. So by having a graded junction and by 12 volt works at the 100 angstrom outside, and so that works. So the idea is very simple. The production line is also running EEPROM. All I need to do is to go in and change the oxide down to 100 angstrom. So within about 6 months' time, we demonstrated it works. The problem is whether you can, two big problems. One is, more than that, but one concern is the control of the erase distribution. The other is reliability, and the third is just a variation, which is really tied to the erase control. So, but we think that there's enough promise, so we start putting together and put together a 64K array to, is the next page? So we put together an array, and with this good idea, we said, okay, we now have this idea. We went to business units that then tell them that we now have a electrical erasable EEPROM. Wonderful. You want this as a product? They told me, no, we do not want it. Because the customer wants a Flotalk byte alterable function. They do not want a block erase. And so I said, okay, all right, let's go back and try to do something. But in a very short time, we were told that we're going to have to team up with Cycor, because Cycor has a real byte alterable E-square program that's a program that we need to work on. That becomes the major program. It's literally that I was doing some evaluation on a Friday afternoon. I was still talking to my Jerry Parker, some of you know him. about what the kind of problem we may have. Monday morning, I walk into the office, and then they announce the program, this joint program with Cycle already. So as a good corporate citizen, I started working on the Cycle program. But in the meantime, the business unit at that time, they formed a business unit to capitalize on this Cycle investment, and Dick Pashley is was made the business unit manager. But Dick also was the one who was managing the development program before. So I asked Dick, so what do I do with this E-squared, E cube EEPROM program? He said, why don't you work on it as long as you limit your budget to about X amount, then you can work on it. So for about 2 years' time, I actually ran two programs, the Cycle program and the Flash program. So if you go to the next page. So both projects actually works. From the technical aspect of it, both programs work. But when we sit down to do evaluation in terms of the scaling and the cost, this detox single transistor EEPROM cell, it's much more scalable. The Cycle cell is three poly layers, and they're stacked against each other. There's a lot of alignment problem and all that. And so finally we decided that, all right, so we'll focus on the Flash program and kill the Cycle program. But what I want to say that is the work that we did in Cycle, with Cycle, actually didn't come to waste, because two of the key members went on and do great things. One of them, John Alley, eventually, Dan Goodman, he was a key member of the Cycle team. The other is Bing Ye, he actually formed SST, which has grown into a big company. And the Super Flash is the most used embedded memory in the world, and at this time. So I would say that at least the program from that perspective has success. Intel focused on the ETOS program with a first product design 256K. We get sample working in '87, and we presented in the ISCC paper. I was not there during the paper presentation. I was told after the paper was presented, people will walk up to the presenter, I think it's Niles, they tell you will never make this to work because you will never be able to control the erase distribution. But anyway, so they are actually half right, because this is another side check. But, we were actually having a problem internally at that time for the program. When I did my work originally, I did it in the R&D line. The cell works perfectly. And when we said we're ready to move into manufacturing, we moved in the manufacturing line, the erase distribution was 5 times wider, out of control. But very quickly, we get a handle on what happened. Basically, in the advanced line at that time, they're developing ONO dielectric, and they need to do that to get to a lower temperature mid-session. Whereas in the manufacturing line, they're still doing the polyoxide in the polydielectric. And the grain size difference between the lower temperature oxide and the high temperature oxide makes the complete difference in the erase distribution. The low temperature controls the erase distribution, the big one cannot control. I can still remember I was presenting to Gordon, and I told him in 2 months' time we'll have the solution. And thank God I didn't fail it. By the way, that was the secret sauce at Intel for the next 4 or 5 years. Everybody else still use the EEPROM process, which is a big product dielectric, and everybody find wide distribution. Every day they will come and say, how can you do that? We use the ONO dielectric with a low temperature mid-session, and we can control erase distribution. So we introduced the 1 megabit in '88. The megabit, by the way, holds the Intel record from tape out to silicon out in 9 days. It was like a 13-minute process. And I can explain to you what happened. And in customer's hand, in 15 days, we broke all-time Intel record in terms of how to deliver a product to the customer. The early parts are all broad erase power. Next week. From then on, we sort of have a good run because nobody else can make it, and even though there's the need for such a part, so we actually quadruple our business every year for the first 4 years. And at that time, the Zion, this British company, they used the first flash card based on mobile computer. Eddie connected me with a sort of a custom interface. We also but what happened was, I don't know if you remember the history. 88, 89 was Intel introduced a 486, and then by the early 90s the Pentium. So the company is increasingly, I think by 87, 88, the EEPROM business and the microprocessor business has about the same revenue, even in that time. But the company is betting on microprocessor. So as you remember, in I think 90 or 90, we sat in a conference room with Craig Barrett talking about what to do with the development facility called D2 in Santa Clara. And the decision was to convert it to a logic-only fab, convert to 8-inch, and be the showcase for logic manufacturing. After the whole meeting, and then at the end, my boss at that time, Bob Jackman, he asked Craig then, what do we do about flash? He said, I don't know, go and figure out something. So basically, Intel got out of focus on flash manufacturing, and so we took up the technology. First of all, try to make the technology in a place called NMPX, which is a Nikon steel foundry to make flash. And then in '92, we signed a development contract with Sharp in Japan. That we transferred the 0.6 micron flash technology to Sharp, and then Sharp and us will have a joint capacity, and we will also go through 2 generations of development at Sharp. Next week. So to make a long story short, after 2 generations, Intel thinks that maybe there's some value about this flash memory after all. So they said, okay, no, let's not do it Sharp, let's do it ourselves. So then we bring development back from Japan to Albuquerque, which at that time was running flash development. So instead of going to Japan, I was going to Albuquerque. And it's only until about 96 or 97 that Bob Jackman, I give him all the credit, fought very hard with Mike Sprinter at that time to bring flash back into Santa Clara. So we moved back into Santa Clara for development about 96, 97, and that lasts until the company gets spun off to Mnemonics, and then they shut down E2. One more thing about MLC. We actually started doing MLC work in about 92, 93. And to do that work, one of the key guys that you may know that we have, Greg Atwood, he actually spent a year's time tracking 1 billion bits. At that time, 1 billion bits is a lot. We just get all how it changed with time for the whole 1 year to understand the behavior of the flash memory, how the cell change over time. And from that work, they found a basis to do MLC work. I think that's it.
I tried to recruit Greg to Sundays, but he wanted to set it.
I really just this now.
He was possibly going to speak tonight also, but fortunately we have Stefan.
So, but anyway, to just conclude, I left Intel end of '06, and through my career, I started the 986 1.5 micron, and by '06 we have a 65 nanometer technology, It's about 800 times cell size reduction, 10 generation, Moore's law, one generation every 2 years, and we just do it like clockwork. But also we introduced MLC in the meantime, so the equivalent size reduction is about 1,600 times. So this is another bit of history. So this is a transition for Intel to go from EEPROM to Flash. By around 80, 89, like I said, Intel was working on microprocessor. We were doing both EEPROM development and Flash development. And the company has to make some choice. And to the credit of the manager this time, that's Gordon, Andy Gordon, and Albert Yu, I think, was involved. They decided that they need to kill the EEPROM program. So they aligned the EEPROM program and just tell customers, will be no new generation, will continue to make it for you, and then we'll start focusing on Flash memory. I think, at least in my memory, I cannot think of another case where a company facing this sort of kill one of their cash cow and move into a brand new program. In retrospect, you can see that it was the right decision that by 92, 93, Flash is exceeding EEPROM, and then it took off right after that. And by the way, this taking off is driven by cell phones. Cell phone is the one product that drove the growth of Flash.